Alright, in this one I thought I'd go through just some of the basic geometry tools that you can use to block out your levels in Unreal 5. I would say that these tools are useful in terms of creating level blockouts, so basic layouts. Obviously I would expect for a proper level you would replace this with meshes that you've made in Maya or any other 3D software for that matter. So we'll make a new level for this. We'll go File, New Level. You can start anywhere you like. I'm going to start with basic just so I don't need to add things like skylights, skyboxes, etc. So I'll start with basic, create that level. We do start with this floor mesh, but I'm going to get rid of that and I'm going to come over here and use the geometry tools much like we did with the door. So I'll show you some basic stuff and maybe I'll put a level together just to show you what you can do. So I'm going to drag in a box. First thing I want to do with this box really is get it into the center of the level. So once I've brought it in, I'm going to come over to the details tab and next to location I'm going to set its location on the X, Y and Z to 0. So 0x, 0y, 0z. You can press the F key to zoom in on any object that you've got selected, or you can double click in the outliner to do the same thing. When you're dealing with geometry brushes, don't use scale to change the size of the brush. Use these brush settings here for X, Y and Z. So for this one here, just to start things off, I'm going to set this to a 10 meters by 10 meters by 50 meters. And that's going to give me a nice 10 by 10 by half a meter floor plane. I'm also going to bring in a player start point, so with place actors I'm going to grab a player start and drop that in. If you don't see the place actors tab, you can get it quite easily by just going to window and finding place actors. I'm going to bring that in for you. Wherever you put this player start, that's where your player is going to start at this level. So in this case pretty much in the middle. I can zero it out on the X and the Y to get it right in the middle. I'm not going to change the Z because I want it to stay there. I don't want to push it into the ground. You'll get this bad size notification and the player will spawn in the ground. If you do want to snap it down to any object really to the ground, just press the end key and it'll snap it down to the nearest bit of geometry. Alright, just a very quick one on this. Well, we actually did cover some of this with a door, punching holes in things, but we could maybe go a little bit further. I'll go through like how to maybe join rooms together. For example, if you wanted to make some rooms connected by a corridor, we could do that. So I'm actually just going to get rid of the player start, or at least move it out of the way, and I'm going to take this floor plane and I'm going to make it a decent size for a room. So I'm going to scroll down and find my brush settings. I think 10 by 10 meters is fine as far as width and depth, I guess, is concerned. And then on the height, I think I'll go like 5 meters. If I go inside this room right now, you can see, well, first of all, I'm underneath the grid, and also there's no geometry on the inside. So I'm going to raise this room up a little bit so that I'm at least above 0, and then I'm going to come back over to the brush settings and I'm going to tick this box here, which is to hollow the brush. And essentially what that has done, if I go into my multiple viewports and zoom out a smidge, you can see now this room has thickness on all sides. So we've made a hollow room. Maybe I'll bring my player start point in here. Where has it gone? There it is. I have to raise it and bring it in, press end. If I press play now, I'm going to spawn inside of this room here. Let's make maybe a corridor that goes around a bend and joins to another room. And that could be enough to get you started with this stuff. So I guess what I could do is just hold Alt and drag out a copy of this room. I'm going to make this into a corridor, so I'm going to make it more narrow. So I'm just going to go nice and simple. Let's say 500 and 500. Let's make it longer on the X. Let's go another 1000. And then I'm going to like sort of line this up nicely. You can check your alignment here by going into your multiple viewports. I'm in the top view there, and I can see that my walls are lined together. If you want to line them up perfectly, like as in they overlap with each other, you just got to be mindful that you're going to end up with clipping. So I generally tend to have two walls connected like this. It's fine for blocking out. And then the next step obviously is to punch a hole through this wall here so we can have a doorway. So I'm just going to bring in a new box for that. Yeah, I think what I'll do as well here, oops, there we go, geometry, is I think I'll show you how to customize the shape of this. So maybe if we don't want a perfectly square doorway, we could kind of make it into an archway. So we'll give that a go. So first of all, let's get it to a decent size. So I'm just going to set the Z to 220 for now, lift it up in the air, drop it down a bit. I'll just keep the width as is for the time being, and then we'll change it as we go. In fact, I think so, like looking at this, my walls are, if we look at this, the wall thickness is set to 10 by default, so that when I've got two walls connected to each other here, this is 20 centimeters. So I know that this door hole is going to have to be 20 centimeters on the X, so I might as well change that now. And I will set it to subtractive just to have a quick look at that, and I'll just line it up. Yeah, so that goes through the walls perfectly. In fact, I think what it's done is it's made it five, sorry, yeah, so these two walls together look like they're actually, because my grid increments are set to 5, so yeah, this is 2 sets of 5. So the wall thickness, when it's set to 10, includes both sides, so 5 centimeters there and 5 centimeters there. So let's set this to 10 and then just line it up with the wall so it goes through nice and neatly. So yeah, if we don't want this square shape, we can edit that brush. Now I'm going to go into my 4 viewports for this. I'll go into the back view so we can see our cube. It's not a cube anymore, but you know what I mean, our doorway brush. And I'm just going to move it into the middle, so it should be nicely lined up in the center of the, more or less, close enough for a block out. So now we're going to edit this brush. So I'm going to go into my select mode and change that into brush editing. So what I can do here is do various things like extrude it, clip, we can use the pen tool, we can split an edge. So let's start splitting this up, and I'm going to try and make a kind of basic archway, nothing too accurate because I am just blocking out for the time being. So I just want to get a hold of, right here you can see I've got a hold of a face. I'm going to get a hold of like this edge here, if I can just get it. Now I've got this edge selected, and I'm going to press split, and that's added a new edge going all the way around, a new edge loop, and I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to grab this edge here, if I can just get a hold of it. It's quite annoying. And that one will do. Split, and again over here, split. Let's do one more. Split, and again here. So I'm going to split them all in half. Split, and split, and this last one, split. So I've got some new geometry to play with here. Let's go into the back view for this. So all I'm going to do is just select these verts here, and I'm going to lift them up. Say, let's go 10 centimeters, and then I'm going to go for these ones. Let's go 10 centimeters. These ones, I'll go 5 centimeters. So it kind of gradually becomes an archway. Let's have a quick look and see how that turned out. Not amazing, but not too bad. At least it gives you an idea of what you can do with this tool. Maybe I'll take those two edge ones in as well. Let's grab these. Just holding Alt to select. I'm going to bring them down a little bit. That gives us a bit more of a arch shape, a bit more gradual. Yeah, that'll do. Okay, so we've made our first doorway into the corridor. Really all I'm trying to do is give you ideas on what you can do with your levels. The next thing I want to do is put like a, let's say I want to turn a corner here. So all I'm going to do for that is just to copy out my existing corridor. Obviously you would probably take a little bit more time and care. I'll press F to zoom in. I'm going to zoom right in and right click on this point so I can grab it by the point and just make sure that it's lined up. That'll do. Let's check just to make sure that I am aligned on all sides. Very good. Okay, that'll do. So really what I want to do here is punch a hole through this entire wall. So let's grab another box, bring that in. So let's have a look at the width of my corridor, the dimensions. So I've got like 10 meters that way, but really I'm looking at this section here, which is 500 by 500. So I'm just going to bring this through the other side. It makes sense to do it from that side, but we have to take 10 centimeters off either side for the thickness of the wall. I'm just going to go out of editing mode and back into select mode. So let's change this to 490 by 490, and then the thickness of my wall was going to be, I believe, 10. That was ridiculous, so it's actually 490 that way and 10 on this axis, so I end up with this strip that should fit perfectly inside my room, my corridor, which it does. This is the benefit of using the geometry tool, so you're not using scale either, so you know exactly how big things are. And then the next step will be, let's do this from the top view, I think. And we're going to change this to a subtractive brush. And I'm going to overlap it with this wall. Again, that is nicely done. And then we'll go back. And as you can see, that's punched a hole in, so our corridor now goes around a corner. Jolly good. And then of course we could add any number of rooms, and doors around the outside of our corridors. So yeah, that's a nice way to use the geometry tool to do that. So we've talked through editing brushes. You can experiment with that. We've used subtractive and additive brushes. We've punched holes for doors and added corridors together. There's all sorts of different things that you can do with this. I'm just going to do a quick light build and see what we come up with. So I'm just going to go into build and build lighting only. That's going to bring up the build status, but you can't see that. Let's just see what happens with a build. Okay, so it looks like the likelihood is it's our skylight that is, or the skylight that will be creating all of this additional light inside of these rooms, because really the light should be blocked out. So let's take our skylight and I'm going to turn it down. That is not what I wanted to do, that is indirect. There's our intensity scale. Okay, let's turn it down significantly. Also, we do have the auto exposure turned on in the project settings, so it is going to automatically brighten up our levels. But as you can see, if I just immediately go inside, it is dark. So this is like kind of replicating what your eye does when you go from a bright environment to a dark environment. The pupil, I believe it's the pupil, might be something other part of the eye, but it basically opens up to allow more light to come in, which is why we're seeing this gradual change in lighting. You'll have seen it in games before, you'll have seen it in real life when you're outside in the bright sunshine and you step into a dark room. It's very dark initially until the eye gradually opens up to allow more light in, and you can see. We can turn that off if that's something that you want to do. We can go into the project settings and scroll down to find rendering, and if we scroll all the way down here into the default settings, we can turn off auto exposure, and when we do that, we no longer get this gradual update of lighting. It is more realistic to have it on, but it's something that you can experiment with. So if I took my skylight now and changed the intensity scale back up to 1, we've got like a darker room. I can control it just a little bit more now, so let's say 0.3. that gives us a nice, just a little bit of light. I mean, I can just turn that intensity off and just will be in complete darkness, and what I can do then is go and grab some lights of my own. I suppose this is kind of realistic in a sense. If there's no light getting into this room, then I can grab some point lights and start creating some really atmospheric lighting effects. With the point light, there's all sorts of settings over here. The main ones that you're going to focus on really are like the attenuation of the light. Let's just put that back to where it was. The other things that you might want to have a look at is the light color as well. Maybe I want to make this a slightly warmer light. or a red light, whatever you want to do. And then of course you've got the intensity scale as well to make it brighter. So attenuation is how far the light can travel, and then the intensity is how bright that light is. I don't know why I've left it green. I'm going to kind of go for a slightly off-white colour, something like that for now. There are other lights to experiment with, of course. We've got spotlights, which are very self-explanatory. They fire a cone in one direction, whereas a point light will fire as like an omnidirectional light. It will fire light out in all directions evenly. You can explore the others. Directional lights are used for simulating sunlight and moonlight. They're infinitely large sources of light. They don't have a particular place that they come from, but more just a direction that they come from, whereas point lights and spotlights have a point of origin like this. With the spotlight you can obviously change things like the outer cone angle to make them wider, and they also come with an inner cone angle as well. You can make them shine out like this. You can experiment with your different light settings if you wish. I'm just going to place these kind of randomly for now and have a little bit of a mess around with attenuation and intensity, just so you can see how you could possibly use these in your levels as well. I could copy them just by holding Alt and dragging out a new copy of that light. With those in place, we can press play and have a little bit of a look around. Very atmospheric. But yes, there are other settings that we can have a look at, like indirect lighting, which is bounce lighting. Essentially, it doesn't really make sense for the ceiling to be infinitely dark right now. We should have light photons bouncing off of surfaces and hitting other surfaces and lighting rooms up. That is how light works in games, but we can maybe have a look at that in more detail another time. Really, I just wanted to show you how to use the geometry tool to block out a basic level. There's obviously tons of options that you can have a look at here with staircases, curved staircases, cylinders and cones. Each of these brushes come with options, so obviously if I wanted to make some pillars, I could grab a hold of this cylinder here, scroll down at the settings. I'll change the number of sides to maybe 32. Let's change that outer radius to 50. Let's change the height to be similar to the height of our room, and then I can just lift this thing up so that it's touching the floor. It's quite wide, so why not? Let's go down to 30, and then I'll drag out a copy and put that over there. Hold Control, grab them both. Whoopsie daisy. Hold Control, grab them both. Hold Alt, and oh, that's what I did there. I dragged them all the way over there. Put them in some kind of position. Press play. Let's have a look at that. Okay, and very quickly you can start to see how you can build interesting environments quite quickly with the geometry tool. And just like I did with the door, you can start assigning materials if you like, but I wouldn't really bother with that immediately. You can apply textures, you can change the UV mapping so that the texture, you can change the UV mapping for each texture if you like. Each face, I should say, has its own UV mapping, so you can change the scale of your textures quite quickly. But yes, I think that will do for this tutorial. In the next ones I'm going to have a look at things like collecting multiple objects in order to unlock a door. Some of you have talked about having to collect, say, 10 items before a door opens or before you're able to progress. And then we've still got things like sound and music to have a look at as well. Alright, I'll wrap this one up here. I'll see you for the next one.